Hi, I'm Peter. I'm a law student at the moment, and I was attending the demonstrations on April the 1st concerning the financial crisis and the G20 summit.
Yeah, I'm Elias. I'm a student as well. I was also attending the same demonstration, and we were both there. We witnessed the man who's died now, and that's been reported in the papers. I'd just like to hold something up. This is the sort of thing that people are saying. Police pelted going to help dying man. Okay, this is in the London Light today, and I've read stuff myself, you know, like about bricks being thrown, saying the protesters threw bricks at the police while they're trying to help this man. But we both witnessed what happened.
Yeah, we're both here to give our account, our unbiased eyewitness account of what happened. At around 7 o'clock in the evening, we were in an area to the east of the Bank of England near Bishopsgate. We were with a crowd of protesters. There had been a few clashes down that road between police and protesters immediately beforehand. And I looked up, I saw a man in his late 40s. He was stumbling along. He looked definitely unable to walk properly. I saw him, he collided with a door that came out of the building and then walked a couple more steps and collapsed. And a person I was with who's got some experience in first aid went running over with another group of protesters to see whether he was okay. He was clearly in a bad way. I remember the person doing the first aid put him in a recovery position, tried to take his pulse, which was weak, and we looked at him. He couldn't answer questions. We asked him his name was, whether he'd been drinking, just tried to get a response from him, but he was definitely unable to understand the questions we were asking. My friend, who was a first aider, was trying to provide help for this guy, and a police charge, because they were trying to clear the protesters out of this road. A police charge sent a lot of protesters running towards this man, and the girl who was providing first aid stood in front of him to make sure he didn't get trampled. And there was a man called an ambulance. He spoke with ambulance advisors who advised that he'd be laid on his back, and then someone had notified the police, and they sent 4 PCs and 2 medics to find this guy. They arrived and they removed the people attending to him forcibly. They didn't really want to listen to what anyone had to say about his breathing or his pulse or anything. At this stage, not everyone in the crowd knew what was going on, that a man had collapsed. And I saw there was one bottle that was thrown towards the police. It struck the wall about 10 feet above them and some distance, I guess, to my left of them. And but then after, the crowd instantly turned around and said, "There's a man collapsed, there's a man hurt, stop throwing things." After that, nothing more was thrown. And the police began attending to him, the medics began doing their job, I suppose. And after that, further police charges just pushed us out of the area. And that was the last I saw of him. I saw 2 ambulances enter the road, what would have been about 15 minutes later.
Roughly, yeah. This has become, the big headline. This has become, epitomised how bad all the protesters were. We were there, it was nothing like that, and the whole thing's become incredibly distorted. The protesters were the people who were there in the first place, helping this man who had collapsed. There was a guy using one of the the loudspeakers saying, "Does anyone know a medic? Does anyone know a doctor? Can someone call 999?" That sort of thing. There were people around him very, very concerned. One of our friends was there helping him out, put him in the recovery position. There was a guy ringing up the ambulance. So people were there, really, really concerned. The protesters weren't, these destructive people who were just letting this guy die, not in the slightest. The police came up and shoved people out of the way, as is their normal sort of style of dealing with these things. The people who were saving his life initially were all of the protesters and the people there who were trying to help him out. And then the people at the back, there were some people at the back, and I personally went over and told them to stop throwing it, like 1, maybe 2 bottles. Okay, that's not a barrage. I told them to stop doing it, and they were like, okay. And the police were not under a barrage. The way it's being represented there, and it's now become this massive headline, that's completely false. I mean, it's nothing like what we experienced firsthand, what we saw, and what we know really, really happened. And it's really, really important that people, hear what we've got to say, because we were there and we saw it.
And just the idea that any missiles in any way prevented the police providing care for him is just absolutely
wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And we had people in the crowd who come up and were helping him straight away.
Yeah.
And also I would say, the mood of a lot of the protests, especially in the climate camp, which I went to see, was incredibly positive. The people there, it was like a festival atmosphere. And the police, very, very provocative. When they come in, they get really heavy-handed. They elicit a kind of violence from the people, and it's a reaction. It's when they resist being moved, because that's the whole point of the protest.
At this stage, we don't know, and no one knows the cause of this guy's death.
Yeah.
We don't know what's happened to him. I would say throughout the day, I saw acts of brutality by the police, and I saw them swinging truncheons at people. We're not speculating as to the cause of his death because we don't know it, but. There's been reports coming out saying that he's died of natural causes, and that hasn't been confirmed yet. When the police arrived, the 4 police constables with the 2 medics, like I said, they forcibly removed the person who was treating him. They, so I'm told, refused to speak to the operator who was from the man who called the emergency services. And then once we saw that the medics were taking control of the situation, we retreated, and we were pushed back by further police charges out of the street entirely onto a much larger crossroads, and that was we waited there for a further at least 20 minutes before we moved on further, and in that time we saw the ambulances arrive, and the ambulances were cheered on by the protesters. They were given thumbs up saying and all that, and they went down the street through the police line, and like I said, I didn't see the ambulances come out. That was the last I saw of the guy.
And literally there was a boo that went up when the police came out, because literally, you couldn't tell there was a whole load of them dressed up just like most of the ones that are bashing people up. And they came out and they thought, oh, they're just going to move us on ahead, and so that's why people.
Thought they were going to arrest someone.
Yeah. And so it was like, so people probably just saw the yellow coats and all that sort of thing, but people who knew what was going on, the protesters were reproaching them for throwing it, and and there was a lot of anger towards the people who did that.
Yeah.
And then it just stopped.
And once the word spread through the crowd that there was a man hurt, nothing more was like.
Yeah, they're basically, when I read these things in the paper, and they've been all over all sorts of newspapers, and I've seen things that are factually wrong in The Guardian, I've seen things that are wrong here, and there are all sorts of different reports. The fact that the newspapers are reporting the stories differently shows that they're not getting something right. Yeah. And I know for a fact that, I
would say, particularly the person who provided first aid for him was extremely brave in staying with him when people charged towards us, and considering that the people were compassionate towards him and people were brave and trying to protect him, it's really disappointing to be portrayed in a way that makes the people there look vicious or criminal.
Yeah,
that was not the attitude it was.
And I'd like the newspapers to qualify, these descriptions. I'd like them to say.
I'd like to know where these reports came from about
what's the source, because nobody asked any of the people.
Yeah.
And we had to look into it to find out, and we've definitely completely confirmed that we know that the man who was there was the one who died.
Yeah.
We know because we've seen the photo of him, and the person who attended to him and our eyewitness things completely match. And the description, where it was, everything, we know that this is the man who's died, so there's no confusion there. The way it's been described has been completely false, and the whole time that we were nearby, the crowd had moved on not long after, because there's another wave of the police moving them up. So I don't think we missed anything. I'm pretty damn clear that.
Yeah. All the time that the police were there and the crowd were there. We were in that crowd and we saw the guy. We were right on the front line of that crowd. There can't have been a stage where the police came under a hail of missiles and that we just
that we suddenly missed. There are legitimate things that people are protesting about, deeply, gravely worrying things that are going on at the moment, and the people have a right to protest in a robust democracy. And it's a sign of health that people go out and do that. These protesters are normal people. We're not going to let a man die. And the whole depiction has been so grossly distorted, and it is it's just, you know, I know that what they're saying, the reports are not correct. They're not true and factual based on my experiences and those of all the other witnesses, and there's several of us, you know, who saw exactly what happened.